Okay, today on the podcast, I've got a really, really great guest. His name is Hannibal from the Hannibal TV. 263,000 subscribers on YouTube and growing, and 155 million views, man. Congratulations on that. And how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. And yeah, my channel's growing every month. I just mentioned in a news update I did today, last month, I actually got more views than Ring of Honor, NWA, and MLW combined. So as a one-man channel, I am proud of that, considering Ring of Honor is owned by Sinclair. Broadcasting has millions of dollars. NWA has Billy Corgan funding it, multimillionaire, and MLW apparently Court Bauer's quite well funded now too. But it's all hard work. Somebody said, "Well, you post a lot more than those." Well, they have the same ability to post, and they have lots of wrestlers under contract. I just work my butt off, and it motivates me to work harder. The positive reaction I get from the fans from all over the world. We have a lot of fans in Ireland as well. We're most popular in the US. Even though I'm based in Canada, only 7% of the people that watch my channel are from Canada. The majority is from the US, and I think the UK is number 2. So it's pretty cool that we're popular all over the place.
What do you think it is about your channel that attracts the views and attracts people to it? Do you think, compared to yours, to those other ones you mentioned?
Well, I don't compare it to just wrestling channels. I also have a wrestling company called Great North Wrestling, which is the best known wrestling company in Canada. We've been in operation since 2007. So we do wrestling matches, wrestling interviews, shoot interviews, and I also do news updates. So it's a little bit of everything, but I think what people like is most of the wrestling news channels are fans of the current products. And although I follow the news because the news still interests me, I don't actually watch wrestling anymore. If there's a match that makes the news, like that zombie match last week everyone was talking about, yeah, I'll watch it because everybody's talking about it. But I do not watch wrestling anymore. I watch the older stuff that I'm a fan of. So I think when I look at my demographics, most of the people that watch my channel are around my age. They're in their 30s and in their 40s. And I am in my 30s, just to let people know. But they're a lot like me. They used to be fans in the 80s and 90s. And somewhere in the early 2000s, they stopped watching. But they're still interested in what the shoot interviews have to say from the older wrestlers from that period. And they still want to keep up with what's going on. And I also do MMA interviews, boxing interviews. So a lot of wrestling fans from those periods have also switched over to being interested in other combat sports. So I think I represent those people that are kind of not really fans of the current product, but they're still wrestling fans. And I think there's a lot of those people out there. I also do cover some UFOs information as well. So some of my UFO videos actually do really well as well, but that's just an outside interest that I have, that I also do interviews in now. And because there's been so much news in that domain lately, I've started doing UFO news here and there, but our bread and butter is the wrestling.
Yeah. And when you touched on the wrestling, you don't watch it anymore. Over here, I started this podcast last November. And prior to that, then I do event promotion over here. So we do rock nights and different things like that. But we always do the big 4: SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Mania, and Rumble. So basically we get 50 whatever of us in the pub in Dublin in Ireland, and we just drink till 4 or 5 a.m. So it's good in that regard, but I don't watch it either. Even though I love wrestling, I just can't watch it. Not at the moment anyway, especially with this Thunderdome. I know it's finishing now, but
God.
the crowd was massively lacked in the wrestling business.
Yeah, well, the issue I have with the Thunderdome is the fake crowd noise.
Yes.
I'd rather have them hitting each other harder and no crowd noise. Like, I've done some cinematic matches on my channel that I've released, and I prefer it better because when there's no crowd there, or you can see it's just people on their computer screens that are not chanting, "This is awesome," and you hear, "This is awesome," it's just terrible, or the oohs and the ahs. When there's no crowd and you see punches that aren't even connecting, it turns me off, but for sure. But would I watch it in Dublin, getting drunk? Yes, that sounds
Yeah.
like a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a few people have said that sounds like fun. I think it's because it starts so late. Like I remember,
Yeah.
I think Mania a couple of years ago. I think it was nearly 6 a.m. one time when we were getting out of the bar after Mania. You can imagine what condition we were in.
Well, to be honest, I wouldn't even be watching it. It just sounds like fun being in an Irish pub.
Yeah. Oh, give me a cinematic match over an empty arena match any day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Or a hard hitting empty arena match where you can hear the blows connecting is very good. But I understand they can't do cinematic matches for all the programming
Yeah.
that they have. But NXT has had 100 people, and they could have had for months now. And actually, Texas and Florida have been able to have full crowds for a while now because those two states have been open, which is why they're starting to do live shows in Texas and Florida next month with fans. But they could have done it for a while, and even 50 fans watching with real reaction, to me, is better than fake crowd noise. So they could have worked around it, but whatever. They make so much money from programming, they don't even care anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Prior to the YouTube channel success, and you were doing a bit of pro wrestling yourself. Do you want to give us a bit of background to how that started and came about?
I was a pro wrestler from 2001 to 2018, and I was started off in amateur wrestling, was provincial champion a couple times, was national champion. Then instead of going to take scholarships, I always wanted to be a pro wrestler. So I moved out to Calgary to train to be a pro wrestler, ran out of money, moved back to my area of Canada at the other end of the country, trained, lived with my family again, trained with Jacques Rougeau, the Mountie, in Montreal for a year while I saved up.
Yeah.
And then I went back to Calgary and trained with Bruce Hart in the dungeon. Then I wrestled for Stampede Wrestling. Then I went on and wrestled in Puerto Rico, where I was a one-time IWA Puerto Rico Intercontinental Champion, which I beat Ricky Banderas for, Mil Mortes, and I'm a two-time WWC Puerto Rico Tag Team Champion. I actually wrestled in the UK too in 2008. Was supposed to wrestle in Ireland, didn't quite work out. But and I've also been running my own promotion in Canada, as I've mentioned before, since 2007, Great North Wrestling. And I'm also a two-time Quebec champion, undefeated Quebec champion. And I am also a three-time Canadian champion. So had WWE matches, had TNA matches, was offered a WWE contract at one point, but due to a health issue I had at the time that I got treated and cleared for, my contract was rescinded. So I never actually got to fulfill my contract. That was way back in 2009. I actually had to I took from the fall of 2011 until the summer of 2014 off from wrestling to get rid of and get cleared of my health issues. And then I went back into wrestling, and I continued on. I've wrestled, by the way, Kevin Nash, Psycho Sid, Honky Tonk Man, Brutus Beefcake, Lanny Poffo,
Wow.
James Storm, Abyss, so many famous wrestlers, Savio Vega, Kevin Nash. I've worked with Terry Funk. I've worked with so many, Davey Boy Smith Jr., TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd, Ted Hart, Eugene, Heidenreich, like literally 50 legends that I can't even remember. Kamala, since I've been hit in the head so many times. But as I continued on in 2016, after attending as a match where I was scouted by Jim Ross and Gerald Briscoe. Gerald Briscoe in 2016 got me an NXT tryout. And if anyone doesn't know Gerald Briscoe, WWE Hall of Famer, he's the one that recruited Brock Lesnar. He's recruited a lot of the guys like Shelton Benjamin, a lot of the successful wrestlers over the years. He tried to recruit me, and for 7 weeks, I was in talks with them. They actually sent me my itinerary for my NXT tryout. It was supposed to be in May 2016. And then without any explanation, a week before the tryout, I got a message from someone else in talent relations there saying, "We're sorry to inform you, but you're uninvited from the tryout. Sorry for any issues we may have caused you."
Yeah.
So at that point, my YouTube channel was just starting to get popular. I wasn't doing it full time then or anything, but at that point, I'm like, okay, well, if Gerald Briscoe can't get me in WWE, I'm never getting in WWE. I'm making money from YouTube back then, and I was enjoying it. I'm like, I'm just going to continue putting on my own events here and really focus on my channel because that's what I'm going to do for my career. So that's exactly what I did, and my success has grown. And then after a while, I didn't even want to wrestle anymore, and I just wanted to focus on being a reporter. And when I put on events, I'd rather focus on producing the events and doing interviews the day of the events. So I decided just to focus on the YouTube side of things over at the Hannibal TV. So as you mentioned, almost 160 million video views now. We get anywhere between around our highest we ever had in a month was 9.5 million. That was the first month of the lockdown here. So everybody was home, but we get pretty good monthly views. So yeah, I'm just focusing on that. And now I'm a full-time YouTuber.
Yeah. So do you reckon that part of the problem with the NXT tryout was your channel? Do you reckon that they were looking at that?
I think it may have had to do with someone didn't like me there.
Okay.
And badmouthed me and got me uninvited. Possibly a guy like Kevin Owens, who I've had heat with for a long time, dating back to when we were both training at Jacques at the same time. When he always acted nice to me until he stopped seeing me.
Yeah, what happened with you guys?
But yeah, I don't know. It could have been that, or it could have been someone else kiboshing it. I don't know, but it was strange. Or it could just be a cruel prank on me because they're known for doing that sometimes. Let's get them all excited. But honestly, even in 2016, wrestling was a lot better than it was now. And now it's just, it's not going back to being good. It's so corporate. It's so scripted. There's so much programming. And I'm really not a fan of it at all now. So back when I was growing up in the 80s, I was a big fan of it. And I was a fan of it in the 90s during my high school years. But now it's not the same job that I wanted when I was a kid. It's not the same characters. It's not the same at all. It's not larger than life characters. It just looks like choreographed matches. And a good point of that is if you remember Jason Sensation, the impressionist that they used during the Attitude Era. I did an interview with him the other day, and he doesn't even hardly do impressions of anyone these days because there's so few characters, and like it's so hard to impersonate somebody that has no character.
Yeah, it's all these guys that are great wrestlers wearing black trunks and just kind of plain guys. I always bring it up that there's a serious lack of characters. Like even if you look through the Attitude Era in the 90s, guys like Gangrel, Goldust, characters like that, it doesn't seem to exist anymore except for maybe The Fiend, which is up and down as well.
Easy, and it's run its course, and like the stupid thing that they did with The Fiend and John Cena at last year's WrestleMania, which I did watch that match, which just like with teleportation and vaporizing and like disappearing into different things. It's like, we know we have to suspend our disbelief, but this is just to pin someone and they disappear, and that's the main event of WrestleMania. Imagine Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, or Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, and he's pinning the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior just disappears.
Yeah, you would need a big fat joint to enjoy that match, looking back on it, I think.
Yeah, but as you said, I don't watch it because it actually makes me sad, because it's like, this is not what professional wrestling is, and I'm embarrassed when people think that I'm a wrestler, I'm in the wrestling industry. They think that I must be a fan of this stuff.
Yeah.
But like if you look at that zombie thing, which I know they were paid over $1 million to do, but then they hit the lowest SmackDown rating that they've had forever, and a very low Raw rating too. It's like, is it worth $1 million for the bad publicity and the phony looking stuff? And then all the zombies took a group picture after. And here's the other dumb thing. They had The Miz doing publicity the next week with like Forbes and the New York Post. It's like, this guy was supposed to be eaten. So then it just becomes a big joke.
Yeah.
It's like, or last year they had the giant squid. I did watch that. There was some match where they end up in a dumpster with a giant squid, and then they all just start screaming. It fades to black. There's no finish of the match. Then the next week, there's no explanation of what happened with the squid. They're all just back wrestling again.
Yeah. We'll focus on something a bit more positive, maybe. Who's your favorite ever guest that you've had on the show? Not just one. I'd say guests. It wouldn't be fair to pick out one.
Yeah, there's so many. Well, the UFO one's easy because it's Paul Hellyer, who's a former defense minister of Canada, which is the highest ranking person I've ever interviewed. So I'm very proud that I interviewed a former national minister of national defense. Yep. And I hope to interview more people, high-ranking officials in the future regarding different stuff, just to expand. In wrestling, as you said, I mean, Billy Graham is up there. Kurt Angle, I interviewed recently. He was a hero of mine because but when I took my hiatus from pro wrestling, I went back into amateur wrestling for a year. And in that year, I actually got second place at the Olympic trials for the London Games for 2012. And I remember like reading Kurt Angle's book during that time and taking some of his intimidation tactic tips from his book and some of his conditioning tips. So it was pretty cool. He would definitely be up there. Honky Tonk Man was one of the first interviews I ever did. 3 hours. It has nearly 4 million views. I believe that's like the record for any shoot interview on the internet. So that one's up there too. So, and in UFC, Boss Rutan would be up there, but I've actually become friends with Tank Abbott, and I've become friends with Dan Severn. I find actually the MMA fighters are actually easier to like than the wrestlers. The wrestlers, have more attitudes. But I've also in boxing, I've interviewed Larry Holmes, Evander Holyfield, a lot of famous people in boxing too. So I keep expanding.
Have you got a bucket list of guys that you want to have on the show?
Well, yeah, well, Jesse Ventura, of course, he's up there, and I definitely got to get him. Of course, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but Austin would be on there. I do know
Yeah.
Austin. One cool thing about the channel is in 2019, he actually called me
Oh, cool.
because he watched a bunch of my interviews, and he's actually put me over on his podcast 3 times. On the Al Snow interview he did, the Tom Pritchard interview he did, and the Duke the Dumpster Drosy interview he did that I actually set him up with. He did talk about me on those. And yeah, he did call me just to tell me I was doing a good job in January 2019. And he actually asked me about a bunch of my interviews. So I thought that was pretty cool. And he actually liked me as a wrestler too. He, during his Al Snow, I didn't even remember to tell you, but Al Snow's another guy I've wrestled along with Scorpio and Gangrel, who you mentioned earlier. Yeah. But Austin put over my match with Al Snow.
Cool.
Also, Rick Steiner, wrestled him too. So yeah, the list goes on. More of them will pop into my head as I go. But
yeah, I think you're judging by the way like Steve was talking about you and stuff like that. It'd be nice to see sometime in the future if that happens.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I am actually friends with one of his daughters.
Okay.
She doesn't live. She actually lives over in England, but we've actually become friends because I've actually interviewed his ex-wife Jeannie a bunch of times. I met her through her, and yeah, she's really cool. But that would have no bearing on whether I get an interview with him or not. No. But The Rock would be up there, to name another one. Tom DeLonge from Blink-182. He would be my UFO guy I'd want to interview. And in the MMA world, I guess Conor McGregor would be the one. And I guess you could say Vince McMahon I'd like to interview. that would be my bucket list for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think you could hit a few names off that list.
As I continue to grow, it gets easier. Well, it's never that easy, but I wouldn't have, in 2016, I don't know if I ever thought I would have interviewed Kurt Angle. And now that became a Rob Van Dam is another one I did recently that I was shocked that I was able to get.
Yeah, so, he's on my bucket list, Rob Van Dam. He's a proper cool guy.
Yeah, he's I really like him, and I'm happy he got in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he deserves it. Have you found the last year challenging on this side of things with podcasts and everything, or is it a little bit easier now that everyone is kind of available for podcasts like this and they're so accessible rather than you having to go get these guys into a studio or something?
Yes, actually, I was actually discussing that in another interview recently. When the lockdown first happened, I was actually very scared because it was like, I'm not going to be able to promote and get my wrestling matches on tape. Or I'm not good because before this, I was traveling for all my shoot interviews, which was very expensive.
Yeah,
because people just weren't doing these online interviews. So I was paranoid. And actually, up until last March, I was still working relief at a job that I've had working for the city here at a recreation center for like 13 years now. So of course I was cutting back to the point where I was only doing relief at that point, but I was scared because I was like, how am I going to get more content? And now I'm not even going to be able to do any shifts at my job because, by the way, gyms are still closed here till at least July 25th. So my job has been closed over a year. Will I go back to it? Probably not. But the whole point was at that time I was afraid. But then, as I mentioned earlier, the first month of lockdown, I ended up getting like 9.5 million views which was my record. So of course the YouTube payment reflected that. And although, because everyone was home then, since then the lockdown rules have slightly changed and people have adapted and so forth, but it never went down to where it was before the lockdown. It's stayed a lot higher, and my costs have gone down because, as you mentioned, we can now do interviews online. I still do some in person. I was in the US the past 3 months doing a lot of in-person interviews, but to travel for every single interview, pay a hotel, gas,
Yeah.
food on the road, this is way easier. And as far as actual wrestling footage, maybe I haven't had as much, but I have still been doing some custom and cinematic matches. And also I've had alliances with various other wrestling companies such as PCW Ultra, which is based in LA, in my opinion, the top American indie company, where we've had footage sharing agreements. So, and I've also started working with some other interviewers, such as John Paz from the Two Man Power Trip of Wrestling, where I post some of his interviews for some extra content. So I've just been getting content in other ways and sometimes buying other people's footage and so forth. So yeah, overall, this hasn't changed. The only thing is I don't like living with a lot of restrictions. And for instance, I'm fully vaccinated. I got my vaccines when I was in the US, and living in Canada right now with ridiculous restrictions. You can't even cross province to province right now.
Wow.
The police have the right to pull you over at any time to make sure you're not driving with someone that doesn't live with you, because you can be fined for that. And it's like everything's closed. It's just, life is kind of miserable. I don't get to see people. The only communication I have is with people on the internet, because the gym is my hangout. Now I got to train in my basement.
It's not the same. You definitely, I feel like I haven't seen some of my friends in well over a year. So I'm going to meet them now in a couple of weeks. But it feels like you kind of lose touch by not seeing people in person. Like this kind of stuff doesn't cut it for everyone, you know?
No,
Yeah.
I fully agree.
And wait, is that why you moved up to the US from Canada? Were you just kind of looking at the way things were going there and you just said, fuck it, I need to get out of here?
Yeah. And I had an opportunity. I was doing a collaboration with a company there that ended up being scumbags. So I won't even mention their names.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Opportunity to collaborate, and down in where I was in Texas, it was fully open.
Yeah.
So it was a nice break. And I was actually supposed to stay there. I was planning to stay there until the lockdown ended. I had a visa for my business, so I still had 3 months left on it. But they ended up being scoundrels, as a lot of people are in the wrestling business. So I came back. But the good news is I was also helping them on the technical side of things for online stuff. So that was taking away some of my own time on my own channel. So now that I'm back here, I've only been back 2 weeks, and I've already gained 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers. So at least it's rededicated myself to this. And to be honest, some of my fans were getting, because I was collaborating with another group, some of my fans were like, please stop, like, go back to what you were doing. We're sick of hearing about this other group. So I think overall the fans are happy. I wish I could have stayed down there longer just for the no lockdown, because in another 3 months, I think things will be a lot better here. But whatever. I learned one thing for any independent wrestler or videographer that wants to collaborate. No matter how insignificant it seems, you should always try and get a legal agreement, just in case someone tries. Some people might seem real nice and helpful, but always get legal agreements on stuff. That's one thing I learned out of
Yeah.
this.
I have to say, man, when I was kind of looking at that stuff, I thought, this is just a work, I thought at the start, but then as it progressed, I kind of said, all right, no, this is fairly legit now.
It was so ridiculous, it almost seemed like a work.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh my God, he's playing us here.
Yeah, but I'm sad to say, the main issues there is they've got so many people in management and ownership that there's so many different intentions. Like, for instance, there's like 4 legitimate owners with that group. And one of the owners called me when I was already back in Canada. And by the way, it's not easy to get back here right now.
Yeah.
I actually had to pay a lot of money to get back here and go through a lot of hell to cross back over because they don't like people crossing the borders right now. But one of the owners actually called me and said, why didn't you call me before you came back? Because it was Teddy Long that actually told me to go home, because I guess according to Teddy's own words, he's his own boss of the company. So I guess he has pretty much free reign to do whatever he wants, or at least that's what he thinks.
Yeah.
And by the way, I thought he was cool right up until the end. But this other owner told me, if you had just called me before you came, I would have made sure you didn't come back because I didn't want you to leave. And I'm like, well, the one owner seemed to be basically what happened with this group. This group is like based in Texas. And as I said, I was dedicating myself to them. Wasn't doing any video stuff really that wasn't approved by them with other people unless they said it was okay, and was really promoting them a lot, as people on my channel saw.
Yeah.
And the one owner accused me of like trying to start some competition for them, which I had no inkling of ever doing. Like, I was building them up. Why would I spend all this time building it up to start something to compete with them?
Yeah, I was watching a good bit of their content that you were posting online and keeping an eye on things, but now since you've left, like, I haven't been kind of keeping in tune with it really.
No.
But
I was like, as I said, I was running that group's YouTube channel too. Like, I took it from 400 subscribers to 20,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And I saw Teddy Long say in an interview that he's the one that really turned things around there. I'm the main reason people knew about that company outside of Texas, where the TV show didn't go. So whatever, they can do whatever they want. I'm going to continue to work with my own stuff, and there's tons of other people that want to work with me, not only in the US and Canada, but all around the world. So I'll be just fine. The saddest part was, though, and I'm actually hurt by it, I legitimately thought I had made new best friends, a lot of new, really close friends that would be friends for life.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, there's less than a handful of people from everyone I've met there that I would still consider friends, just from the way things went down.
We'll take one of the bucket list guests' advice, Stone Cold DTA, don't trust anybody.
No, but as I said, overall, I got the 3 months out of here. It's unfortunate the way it ended there, because overall, I mean, I got to ride a bull.
Yeah,
I had a lot of fun. I ate at very good restaurants. I met a lot of cool people. I met a lot of legends. I got to work with Kevin Sullivan very closely, who is a hero of mine. So that was pretty cool. Not that I hadn't worked with him before, but to work with him on a regular basis was very fun. So although the ending was bad, even though I've since taken pretty much everything of theirs down from my channel because I don't want to give them any publicity.
Yeah.
I got more popular out of it. Even though it's all down, I reached a whole new set of fans. So I wish I could erase the last. It all happened so fast. Seriously, the last show was Saturday, May 1st. Everything was fine that day. When I left, everyone was happy. Sunday, didn't seem anything was wrong. Monday, the world comes crashing down, and then Wednesday, Teddy Long confirms, says go back to Canada. Thursday, I'm on a plane back to Canada, and I still had 3 weeks left paid on my hotel.
That was the yeah. Was that the event with Blood Hunter and Sabu? Yeah.
No, there was a match with Blood Hunter and Sabu that I covered. That was sometime in April. That was the week before. There was 3 events in a row. There was one at a rodeo, which I think was Blood Hunter against Rodney Mack, where they fought all over the rodeo arena. There was the Sabu thing where Selena De Laurentiis got put through a table.
Yeah, seen that.
And then there was this hotel event where I think Lacey Von Erich had got this group, the hotel ballroom, for free or next to nothing. Mm-hmm. And that was just nothing much happened. It was like a house show. Ivelisse was there. So it was cool to meet her. I was a fan of her. And it's funny because I'm the one that actually got her booked. There's a lot of people that I got booked in that company through my recommendations. But yeah, no, the last one was May 1st, and it was recorded for online. It was supposed to go on the YouTube channel, but they haven't released anything from that event yet.
Yeah. Well, on a more positive note, I'll give you a question here. If you were stranded on a desert island and you had to pick 3 wrestlers to be with you, who would they be?
Well, you know what? I would love to say the names, but I don't think I want them to know because they're all female divas.
So you wouldn't end up being bored on the island anyway. That's the main thing.
No, it would be my 3 favorites divas.
That's a fair enough answer. It's the first time I've got that answer, but it totally makes sense. Going forward with yourself, we're just going to wrap things up. What's the plan going forward? What are you going to be focused on over the next year?
I'm dying to be able to promote again in front of fans, but what am I going to be focused on? I think that, as I was telling you off the air, as you were mentioning, it's going to be similar in Ireland. That first of all, WWE has not come to Canada since I don't know when, last January or February, whenever the last house show was here. They're not going to be here for a while. So one of the issues I find here is when WWE comes, if you have an indie show in that same month, you'll get less people because they only have so much money. But WWE hasn't been here for so long, and there are wrestling fans out there that are going to be dying to see some live wrestling. So I cannot wait to promote again. And I mean, one of the wrestlers, we have 3 champions right now in Great North Wrestling. Jeremy Prophet is the Canadian champion. Lufisto is the women's champion of Canada, great female wrestler. And of course, the Blood Hunter is the Great North Wrestling heavyweight champion. He just beat Davey Boy Smith Jr. for that title. And then he's also the Texas champion. So from what I understand, he's also going to be continuing to wrestle not only in Canada, but the US, the UK, and who knows, maybe even Ireland. You'll see him there. I don't know. I haven't seen too much hardcore wrestling in Ireland, but
Yeah, we had Sabu over here a couple of years ago at OTT, so I think it's a possibility.
well, I think that the Blood Hunter is going to be really causing some serious destruction, and the Hannibal TV will definitely be following him for that. He recently reunited with his original manager, Blaze, that couldn't join him in the US during his last time there when he won the Texas title because she's from Canada and there was border issues. But by the time he's back in the US, they'll have loosened those. So from what I understand, he's had enough of Selena De La Renta and is back with his original manager, who is a bit more of an ass kicker. And it's going to be interesting to see how things go. There is going to be some tapings next month here in, I'm not going to say the location, but there's going to be some tapings of Great North Wrestling matches next month here in Canada. And then we'll still get custom matches from wrestlers who are going to appear in Great North Wrestling. Like, as I said, we just had one of Amber Nova and Selena De La Renta. Has nearly 15,000 views in a couple days. Highly suggest people search that up. So we'll continue getting matches from people from around the world to post on this channel. And I'm looking forward to when we come back, there's also going to be more of a focus on female wrestling in Great North Wrestling, because that's one thing that I don't mind watching still. I'll be honest with you on that. Maybe it's because there's so many beautiful female wrestlers, but also I can tell you guys that as someone that pays very close attention to the analytics on my channel, female matches in general get a lot better views than males. So I think I really want to focus on having one of the best female divisions. And one thing I did do when I was down in Texas is I did learn a thing or two about production, and I did work with some people that even worked with WWE in the past on production stuff. So I learned from that, but I also made a lot of contacts and I did a lot of scouting. So I have a good eye for talent, and I think when we come back, the talent's going to be good. And there's other companies such as I said, PCW Ultra in LA. I think whenever they're back running, you'll see me there covering it. And the Blood Hunter has also wrestled before in LA, and I think you could see him back in LA too if I'm going to be there. Sometimes I'll even sponsor Great North Wrestling talent to be on an event that I'm covering, so I can get their matches on tape.
Yeah, brilliant, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you. And we are on, as it says on the bottom of the screen there, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the Hannibal TV. And I am on Twitter at Devon Hannibal, DEVON HANNIBAL. And if you DM me there, I'll follow you back, because there's a lot of spam people, as you know very well. So yeah, nice talking to you. And I was disappointed I didn't get to go to Ireland before, because the pubs there seem like a lot of fun. So I'm sure I'll be down there one of these days.
Hopefully, man. It was great to chat to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Tune in to the Hannibal TV, everyone, or I'm going to get you.
Subscribe.